1. Spags, it's time to battle for $3 million. You versus me in Underdog Fantasy's Best Ball Mania 4.
Yes, $3 million to first place. Pete and I going head-to-head. It's going to be another classic Tuesday here in the doubleheader. Pete's channel, the Splash Play channel, both of them thriving in the Best Ball Mania 4 sunlight. And Pete, there's no banner on the screen. What draft is this for you?
Thank you for teeing me up. This is number 25, a nice clean number. After this draft, I will be 1/6 of the way done of my Best Ball Mania journey. How many teams have you drafted so far in BBM?
I am now at 35 in BBM4. The Poodle, Pete, I did not max out over the weekend, the $7.20 max tournament. So I kind of wanted to get some more drafts in, and there was no cheap tournament to go to. So I did throw a few more in BBM4. And I think it's the one thing you've saved yourself from is by doing them all on stream. You don't get that little hankering like, oh, I'm going to sit around and have a draft. And it's like, that option is out of your table completely.
Yeah, I did slow draft max enter the Poodle. My my buddies were visiting this weekend. There was no way I was getting any live drafts in, but I did notice that contest dropped a little. 20 max felt very manageable there, so I fired off some slow drafts. So I am doing some Poodle slow drafts to get my non-stream draft fix. But otherwise, I feel like I'm satiated right now. I'm doing enough drafts a week that I'm perfectly scratching that itch.
Yeah, I have to do some DraftKings drafts now because those really do feel like work. I will say, of course, Pete, a known influencer for Underdog. I also swear by the Underdog UX and DraftKings. Pete, you're lucky to save yourself from that one because it really just feels like you're clocking in at the coal mine, doing a draft and dealing with fools on there. And it's not as fun as Underdog. And I will say that honestly in an unbiased way.
It is funny, and I know there's some tools out there too. I think the Spike Week guys have an overlay for the DraftKings stuff that's making it. We finally got an Influencer 101. Very nice. And you on the opposite end of the board here. Beautiful. And if everyone likes to do Anthony Richardson watch. Y'all know I'm not taking him. Y'all know I'm not taking him at 72 or 73. And he never comes back to 96. So it looks like no more Anthony Richardson shares for me in this draft either.
He's honestly fallen a little bit in some of the rooms I've been in lately, and it's to the point where I've had a construction that didn't make sense to grab him, and I've avoided him a little bit. So my AR bag's now down under 40% in BBM4. So we'll see if we can get back on track today, Pete, because you're standing strong against Anthony Richardson, and here I am, one of the world's most beloved, beknownst, whatever, renowned AR experts there, writing articles at Football Outsiders, which I am sure you did not read.
I haven't. I did see it on Twitter though. I'm sorry. I apologize for what happened or congratulations, but I ain't reading that, bro. No, I am glad that you took all of your pent up Anthony Richardson frustration. A lot of people accusing you of a bit, and you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down with a 5,000 word opus on him.
I think, Pete, it's a long holiday weekend. You should strap that, maybe print it out, go old school with it, and read that article so you can really cement yourself. Because I think if that article can't sell you, the last article that's been on Football Outsiders for a week as we go through some tough offseason times over there. But I think, Pete, it's your time to read that article and really finally embrace the good word.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff about Anthony Richardson as a prospect. And the thing is that's not what I push back on with all of that stuff. Like I'm definitely, it's all a price thing. And for me, there's just not a lot of upside left where he's going in drafts in a way I don't feel like getting burned. But like you said, he is starting to slip a little. I think we are starting to get a bit of a course correction after Spags led the hype and steam train up into absurd levels. So I'm biding my time here. I'm biding my time. The problem is the more we talk about him, then the more he's still front of people's mind and they're like, yeah, I'll go ahead and take Anthony Richardson. So it's like how I think about crypto, through a bear market. It's like, I just put it on the back burner. I don't think about it at all. And then I come back and I'm pleasantly surprised when it's going back up. That's how I am with Anthony Richardson right now. I just need to stop talking about it. We'll circle back to it and eventually I'll get my shares.
Well, I do have a good talking point from Sam Hoffman that I've mentioned in a few different places over the last few days. I thought it was the best distillation of Anthony Richardson. But let's see what JSH does here because I'm about to pick. And what I do with my pick could decide if I'll get any AR shares today or not. All right, he takes Brown. So I will be live for a week 17 correlation here. I'm taking Devontae Adams. So Pete, the thing Sam Hoppen said was that if you gave Anthony Richardson Josh Allen's rookie average rushing, which is 55 yards per game, like 0.7 rushing touchdowns per game, and you also gave him like a bad passing year, 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, you know what kind of fantasy QB year that would give him?
Probably like 7 or 8.
Top 5. Top 5 if he's just Josh Allen from a few years ago, who wasn't that great coming out of college as a rusher, I will point out, but also didn't pass that well. So a healthy Anthony Richardson, like the health is maybe the main thing you'd worry about, and we don't worry about health.
Yeah, but the thing too is where he's going, like that's about where you're drafting him. You're drafting him. So the whole thing is like you want to be drafting guys who could just massively outperform their draft cost. And when you are drafting him in the exact range where he's going, what? I mean, at one point was he going like QB7? 1,
Yeah,
2,
I mean,
3,
yeah,
4, 5, 6.
he'll go past Watson sometimes, but he's going at 10 right now.
Right. So like that is, I still think what you just laid out is close to a ceiling outcome for him in year one with that offense, because then you really start to have to squint to say he could outperform those other guys.
Okay. I think that his ceiling, I would say, is passing yardage closer to 4,000 and maybe 25 TDs. Like, I think that's in the range of outcomes just because he is a guy that's going to force the ball downfield a little more and get the variance that comes with that. I actually am curious, though, Pete. I know you were covering it a little bit yesterday. Are your dance teams live to move on? Because that Lakers sweep and the Heat stuff, I feel like you're well positioned because you didn't get any 101s and you drafted really smart because of that.
Yeah, the problem is I only have I do have one team that I think is going to get through. It's a Jokic and Anthony Davis team. The problem is I don't think it's going to be live in the finals because it's only going to have, it was heavier on the Lakers. It could field a 5-man Lakers lineup. And so that's gonna hurt me. But I had a lot of fun dancing. I think based on how that team does, I need to check the payouts. I think I'll be profitable in the contest, which was nice. But yeah, it was disappointing because I ended up fading Giannis. What also pissed me off is Bam and Jimmy Butler were two of my most rostered guys, and none of them were on my teams that got through. I just didn't get like the right combos with it. And so it was one of those weird things where it is like, it takes a specific team, like the portfolio couldn't even pull that through, but I still had a ton of fun drafting in the dance.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun on Underdog. And yeah, I had some teams too that I got a lot of Giannis. I kept getting 101, so I kept taking Giannis like an idiot. Wish I kind of diversified more. And I thought that stood out to me as being like, oh, that's Pete's general best ball genius. Like, oh, I didn't get this pick. Let me immediately leverage against it. And let's see if you do the same here with this pick.
Damn, I was really looking forward to a Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith click there. I thought that would have been a very fun for the 2-3 turn. Let's see what we are going to do here. I have been starting to mix in some more elite QB builds. I'm going to take Tony Pollard with one of these picks. Let me check what's going on at wide receiver. Is this a piss boy room here? Chris Olave, T. Higgins. Yeah, I think I will take DK Metcalf. It's going to be a while until I pick again. Yeah, let's do DK Metcalf. Don't have a ton of him. What did it say my shares were of Metcalf right now? Oh yeah, I think my first BBM share of Metcalf. So let's start to load him up here.
I get a lot of Metcalf just because of trying to be 0 RB through a portion of a draft, or, at least get those 5 receivers for 10 rounds that for the most part are pretty good. I've been playing more with the 6 wide receiver 0 RB builds where you're just spamming them for the 6 rounds early, because I saw some good data from Neil Farley. I think wrote it up in the Fake Sharp newsletter, which I thought was interesting. And I've heard Hayden talk about it. I feel like the radicalized 0 RB, Pete, is something that people aren't doing a lot of this year. And it's probably the only way to not be comfortable doing 0 RB, because otherwise you just want to take those 7 receivers and feel good about it. But 6 feels thin, but does have good data behind it.
It does. So this is my thing with the radicalized 0 RB, like conceptually, and if I could like hand pick it, I love the concept. One thing that's really hard with it is one, we know we want to be, double stacking ideally our quarterbacks and having multiple stacks. And when you do that with your first 6 picks, it makes it really tough to pull off getting those stacks because you're more boxed into specific teams with those players, where when you're feathering in some wide receivers later, there's more options for you to be able to build out those stacks. So the times I have done like the 6 or 7 wide receiver builds, I find it much, much harder to get kind of the stacks that I want. You really have to kind of think it through in a way that's more of a tightrope walk.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And definitely, I think I had double stacks with tight ends or including a running back. So that's the way that I was able to get different enough there. Also, would have taken Josh Jacobs if he fell. He goes 31 here. I thought that would have been nice to build out my Vegas bet. Because this pocket, Pete, I don't love. I know I'm more of an Amari Cooper guy than you are. But besides that, like nobody on the screen right now kind of seems appealing to me.
Yeah, I mean that's the dirty secret right now is like the back end of the third round and early fourth feels pretty gross when a guy like Ramondre or Jacobs doesn't fall, because then you're pulling the trigger on Ridley or Amari. Sometimes Mark Andrews is there, but in a draft like this, he's not there. If you're a Jahmyr Gibbs fan, like this is the spot to take him. If you do want to get one of your elite quarterbacks, this is kind of the last call, for Fields. So yeah, like there's stuff you can do for sure, but I feel the tier gap a lot after Ramondre comes off the board.
Yeah, Gibbs, I've actually started to take a little bit here just because, especially if you have Amon Ra, like it does feel like getting that Detroit double stack would be nice up top. But yeah, Hall goes now, so I can't extend my bet on Cooper. It's just a tough week 17 correlation spot, a tough talent spot. And Najee falls, Pete, every single time in these rooms. I'm not taking him at 39, but it gets tempting to take Najee when he gets to like 45 or later.
Yeah, I think I got my one share. Was it on Splash Play or was it on Best Ball Breakfast? I obviously do too many drafts to keep track of, but I think I finally got a share of him in the late 5th round, and I will get my Najee exposure at that price.
God, I hate this. I am going to take, you know what? Let's just keep the dream alive. It'll come through eventually. I'm sure.
What?
Michael Pittman going incredibly early because I hate the receivers and I got enough of all of them.
What? Yeah, how high ahead of ADP is that?
Oh, 16 picks. A little bit of a reach.
Spags takes Michael Pittman at pick 39, ADP of 55.9. So let's just look at this, Spags. So to your point, like he's not in this room, he's not coming back to 58, right? So it was close. If you were in the middle of the round and you really wanted him, I still would say like just push it. But Drake London coming off the board here. We are basically shifting the wide receiver ADPs up, 5 or 6 picks in this room right now. So as much as I'd like to pile on you for that reach, if you are trying to set that up, that was your only chance to get him.
I mean, Christian Watson being gone too, like normally he's still there in that grouping. The guy took him at 30. So sometimes there are just pockets where like I have enough Jerry Jeudy, I have enough Mike Williams because I just kind of get those guys as being in that situation. So I'm going to take a guy I want here because frankly, Pete, I've not been getting enough AR lately. And at least I've got the week 17 correlation. I'm live for AR, all the things we want on the stream.
Yeah. We should also just mention, team 2 did what I was really hoping to do. The Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts. I was hoping that would fall to me at the 1. That's very nice. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin with one of these picks. We have our anchor RB. There's no running backs in this range I want. And so now the decision is going to be for me, do I take a 4th running back here or do I grab my elite tight end here? I do already have Justin Jefferson. I'm going to just build out this Vikings bet. On my stream with Ian, I did a Jefferson, Hawkinson, and then I think kind of made a panic Kirk Cousins pick on a Josh Allen team that I didn't ultimately think I needed. And so I am going to take this Jefferson Hawk, but not necessarily force Kirk, because I think he is the kind of perfect quarterback, or these are the kind of perfect pass catchers where you can get the benefits of the stack without having to invest in the quarterback necessarily. I'm still very open to Kirk there, but I'm going to try to be a little bit more flexible this time than I was last go around.
How do you feel with Addison's price tag? Like, is it worth trying to get the Minnesota triple stack, or is it you get one of Hawkinson if you get Jefferson, either one of Hawkinson and Addison as that group? Because I like the idea of the triple stack, but the price is hard because you're basically saying like the Vikings are going to be this year's Bengals, and I don't know that I believe that.
I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't think it's like bad, but to spend, because so from this spot, to get it, you're going to have to do it Addison at the 6-7 turn, right? Because there's no way for the 1 hole he's coming back to the 8. We're assuming that Hawkinson's always going to be at the 4-5 turn, Jefferson at the 1-2. So then to devote 3 of your first 6 picks essentially to the Vikings offense feels a little rich. I think that I would be more comfortable with combos of Addison with Jefferson, Addison with Hawkinson, but not all 3 of them together.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's the way too that a lot of people are going to think. So that's why kind of my brain goes to, should I triple stack them and try to get this full upside? And I think, the Vikings defense last year was so bad, they should be slightly improved. Having Brian Flores as a new DC, I'm definitely going to bring some different philosophies that have to be better just based on how bad they were last year. But definitely an interesting thing to think about here is Addison seems up, and Addison Pete might get to the 50s by the time we're in training camp season.
Yeah, and honestly, like you know me, I was battling you about Addison versus Quentin Johnston pre-draft, and I feel like I've completely switched because I agreed with you post-draft. Quentin Johnston is the better pick, and now like the market has flipped it, and everyone's so excited about Addison. I prefer Quentin Johnston's price right now, and maybe in a vacuum because even though I do think he has more bust risk. I do think his range of outcomes as a league winner, just knowing he is not capped in that offense, I do really think the scenarios where Quentin Johnston hits his 90th plus percentile outcome are just far, far more fruitful for fantasy than when Addison does.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely right. And honestly, a lot of talk's been made about the catch and run stuff for Quentin Johnston. Again, a 38% avoided tackle rate for him in college. That was one thing that he did better than any receiver in the class, basically. And the Chargers have talked about just want to get him the ball in space and see what he can do with it. Whereas Addison, I think, is kind of, yeah, I like the fancy phrase, like fancy blank. He's fancy KJ Osborne now, which like I'm okay with. That's actually a pretty good outcome for I think he looked big board draft period and all that stuff. But Addison being, fancy KJ Osborne, I don't know if that's worth a top 55 pick. And that's where he's probably going to be at.
Yeah. And man, it's just like the market now with these wide receivers is so crazy. Like one thing I was mega wrong on, it was on draft night when JSN got drafted by the Seahawks and everyone was hemming and hawing. This is a bad landing spot. And I was like, louder, make it louder because I want cheap JSN. And I thought maybe we get him. I think I even said 8th round on the show. And God, is that looking naive right now because his ADP just will not budge out of the back half of the 5th round. I've barely ever seen him slip to the 6th round, and at least in one of my drafts. And I'm like, I love these rookies. I still think they bring a lot of value, but man, that is rich.
Yeah.
Let's
Speaking
see
of,
here.
what are you doing here?
Yeah. I do not like any of the, well, I could maybe entertain Damian Pierce here. I'm going to go ahead and grab Marquise Brown with one of these picks. The wide receivers continue to fly off the board. And now my kind of question is there's nothing I'm doing with quarterback in this range. I think Goddard's a value, but I'm not going to go too elite tight end. So it's basically, do I take Damian Pierce or do I grab another wide receiver? This room is just very pissy though. And I'm going to go ahead and grab Gabe Davis.
Ooh. I liked your argument about it was one of your streams you did recently talking about Gabe Davis and how like what if he's the guy that's kind of the Josh Jacobs equivalent this year. I could kind of see that just because they didn't really replace the role. I guess Dalton Kincaid's kind of getting priced up in the hopes that he is more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. But Gabe Davis, like we know the spike weeks are there. Like, he can give you 30 points in a week if things align the right way. So Gabe is probably undervalued. He's just not a fun click because it feels, I mean, he was just such a bust last year. That's really the only reason why.
Yeah, and like I get there's everyone has their ways they like to play best ball and with the player takes and stuff, but one kind of like buying the dip on guys who their situations have not meaningfully changed has proven to be a really good strategy. I brought it up a lot with the tight ends in previous years where like Waller and Kittle were going at the 2-3 turn, they burned everyone and then they became much, much cheaper and their outlooks didn't really change that much. I feel the same thing with Gabe Davis. Like his outlook has not really changed that much, but his price has changed by 3 to 4 rounds. And so like buying back on that dip post hype is just something in general I like to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and it's not like Gabe's old or anything. It's not like he's hurt. It's not like there's really any of the things that you would say are a red flag to think of outside the box a little bit. So that's pretty fair. And I took DeAndre Swift there just because of the ADP value. I was thinking Montgomery, but we'll see. I might not take AR today, Pete, which kind of hurts me. But I feel like the running back values are more pressing for me. And also, I just took so many receivers, and now I have to kind of hit the board hard on running back.
No, come on, you're taking it. I mean, if you're reaching for Michael Pittman around and you're not taking AR at 87, what are you doing?
I just want to get the receivers I wanted in that pocket. I wanted to try a 6 wide receiver 0 RB build here today because I've been liking how they looked. And that's why I took Pittman. That's the only reason I took Pittman. And we'll see if Washington Foreskins, who's on the clock, calls me on it.
Every week, they look at, I love you were trying to sandbag reverse psychology it. Nice try, Spags.
All right, Deshaun
Nice
Watson
try.
makes sense here. It's fine. It's fine. Not like I had a bid or anything. No, doesn't matter.
Hang on. I have a serious question for you, Spags. This is like all bits aside, you and me just talking legit best ball strategy. Do you think that you maybe go into drafts sometimes a little too, and because you're literally doing this on Friday, like you're setting out to get specific stacks as part of like a way to mix up drafts and make it fun for content. I get that. But do you think in some of these other drafts that you sometimes go in like, and I'm like this too, right? Like you read someone talk about a player and you're like, oh, that is a fun 18th round pick. I want to go select him. But do you think sometimes you go into drafts with too much of a plan instead of letting the draft room come to you and being like, this might be a radical 0 RB room, but it might not? Because sometimes I feel like you stick to your preconceived plan maybe a little too tightly.
So I think for stream drafts, I do a little more, though. On Friday, I did end up taking a hyper fragile RB build, kind of focused on Bijan, and I forget who I took in the second round, but took a bunch of running backs early and absolutely hated it. I prefer going and trying to draft 0 RB. Obviously, if the room kind of pushes me in a different direction, I do that. But I think I do get a little more different off stream just because I don't even know if that's fair. Make your picks and let me think about that a little more. I'll marinate.
Yeah, I'm looking at this board here. We have reached the wide receiver cliff area. I actually think Jameson Williams is still a decent pick in this range, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and grab James Cook. We're building out a little bit of a bet here with the Bills since I have Gabe Davis. I kind of like James Cook as an RB2. I know there's a lot of Damian Harris steam, but I still think he's a nice pick in this range. And now I'm kind of, I'm at that point at ADP with Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson. I don't have a QB yet. I have a big bet on the Vikings. I do have some other backdoor stacks available with the Seahawks, Washington, Arizona. Do we push it here? That's a real big question. I think I'm going to have a little fun. I'm going to push it. I'm going to grab Zach Charbonnet, another back I really like. I also have a bet on the Seahawks with Metcalf. So I have the Cook, Gabe. I have the Charbonnet and Metcalf. And because I have more outs for backdoor stacks here with quarterback, Howell, Murray, Geno, I'm going to push it and see if the Addison drafter doesn't want Kirk Cousins, essentially, because I don't think a lot of other people are in the market for naked Kirk Cousins is my thesis.
You would hope so. I mean, sometimes these drafts, I feel like late when naked, depends on the room, certainly, but definitely a lot of I feel like the casuals coming in and taking guys like Burrow unstacked, I feel like is a bane of my existence. That's the new Purdy unstacked to me, because the amount of times I have either one Bengal, two Bengals, and the other person doesn't have any and they take Burrow, it just drives you insane. And there's going to be these pockets, I'm sure, that occur all summer long.
Okay. Yeah. Looks like naked Kirk is disgusting. This is what I'm banking on here. Let's check in on your structure here, Spags. You did, was it Deshaun with Amari? Yeah.
Yep.
And then you have DeAndre Swift here, 116. And so are you stopping at wide receiver? Are you done?
I think so, at least for now. If I take a receiver again, it'll be later. I think I kind of dulled a little bit the value of the 6 wide receiver 0 RB build because I did take the reach on Michael Pittman. But I'm on the clock here. I'm never going to argue with Devin Achane. I wish I had a Miami or Baltimore component in this team right now, but Achane to me, one of my favorite rookies, so I'll take him here at a non-value. But not a lot of running backs on the board.
Yep. I think I was saying it on Best Ball Breakfast. I basically settled on one Miami Dolphin running back in every draft. I love Achane. I love Mostert. I love Wilson. I prefer playing them slightly cheaper. I've been taking Achane when he slips. I think I got him at like 116, 117 with a Tua team yesterday. But man, I love that backfield. One of those guys, and maybe two, but one of those guys is going to absolutely demolish ADP.
Yeah, and it could be one of those things, too, that I've seen some social media talk about where maybe one of them is the guy that gets you through the first 14 weeks and then Achane takes over 15 through 17. Certainly a possibility. I still definitely need some running backs here. I also could take another Vegas receiver, but we are committed to the 6 wide receiver build, so I'm going to take Damian Harris here, who I think fits a 0 RB build well. I got Swift, Achane, Harris. I like kind of spamming running backs in this pocket.
Yeah. And Kirk Cousins does go. Definitely not going to begrudge the Jordan Addison owner who had not selected a QB yet of pulling the trigger there at 105. But I am perfectly okay with not having Kirk, despite my bet on the Vikings.
Can I just point out, Christopher Davis, of course, if you saw last week, got my goat last week with some AR takes. This week, Pete, Jonathan Mingo is the new Amon-Ra St. Brown Pete, you like Mingo. You like the draft capital that went to Mingo. Do you think he's the new Amon-Ra St. Brown?
No, it's a horrible, horrible comp. Like, if you want to do a comp to Mingo, you would want to say like he's rookie year Chase Claypool or rookie year T. Higgins. These guys that have red flags on their profile, but are so big and athletic, and they get some downfield shots in year one and score more TDs than we would expect. That's kind of the guys that you're looking at there. But Amon-Ra for Mingo is just a truly awful comp, both aesthetically and realistically. All right, I am going to grab Geno Smith to go with DK Metcalf. I'm trying to see here if there's anything else I'm missing. There's no quarterbacks I think I need to take in this range, so we will grab Geno. And then we're at 5. You know, one guy that I've been wanting to get a share of, and it just like hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And now that I'm kind of in like a flat spot and no obvious correlations are jumping at me, I need to get an Antonio Gibson share here. Ooh. I've been wanting to start mixing him in. Now seems like a good time.
Yeah, I take Brian Robinson enough still. And I guess I honestly should maybe mix in some 18th round Christopher Rodriguez, because he is a guy that kind of plays a similar role to Robinson more so than he does Gibson. The Gibson thing to me, I talked last summer like I didn't like him. I think that ended up being right, that Robinson, clearly the guy they wanted to play more. I think if Robinson hadn't gotten shot, it probably would have been even worse from day one. But this is a new offensive coordinator with Eric Bieniemy that I think there is kind of a chance that Gibson rises back up, even though Ron Rivera didn't like him. So I would take both those guys, obviously not in the same draft for me. But I think Gibson is probably a little bit undervalued. And people have been asking about him, but I think I think they like Gibson for the wrong reasons. They like him because he was good before. But I think the new opportunity kind of aligns where they could end up being right, even if they're not right about the reason.
Yeah. And I mean, I think so. If I think through like the Gibson stuff, his situation has legitimately changed in a good way, in that JD McKissic is cleared out. And that pass catching role is very much up for grabs. Brian Robinson, sure, could he catch a couple balls in a pinch? Yes, but I don't think they're ever going to use him like that. We also just have a long history of the Washington Commanders kind of pigeonholing their backs into roles too. Also, you can ask yourself, how many positive game scripts are the Commanders going to have where they are able to just ram Brian Robinson between the tackles? So yeah, Antonio Gibson, we like his profile. Nothing about that has changed. We know going back to college when he was a wide receiver that he's a very capable pass catcher. We know he's explosive, and he's being drafted in a handcuff committee back range, right? So like, it almost feels like you're free rolling any additional upside. Like, even if he is just doing pass catching backs and he's like a slightly more interesting JD McKissic, he's probably not a bad pick. And then if the scales of workload are tilted even slightly in his favor, then he could be just a smash in this range. At least that's how I'm starting to think about it. And I'm pretty bullish on him. And then realizing I have no Antonio Gibson, I'm like, what's going on? I think it was because I was really prioritizing the rookies in that range. You know, I've been taking Kendre Miller a lot, A-Chain, and knowing those guys were going to probably rise. But when those guys aren't there, man, I definitely think Gibson's a priority 0 RB target.
Yeah, like, and again, I'm not a big Gibson believer. Like, I kind of fudded him down last year, this year too. I think you can point to the stats from last year where he really wasn't better than Robinson in any metric. That said, if we're going to talk about one that he is better at, it is kind of being a pass catcher and being out there and able to run the routes. And if that's something the enemy is going to bring to the table, I think it's there. And what are you going to do with your 2 picks?
Let's see here. Seeing if I have any correlations here. I probably am going to just grab Kyler with one of these 2 picks. He's also a guy that I've been willing to push. I'm going to grab Alec Pierce. I'm sorry to snipe your Anthony Richardson here, but at the top of my queue here, and one of the last like wide receivers, other than some of these rookie darts, that I think has really big upside. We can also push the Kyler stuff, I think, because we have the Sam Howell out as well. I'm going to stay true to my word about my one Dolphins in every draft. We're going to go ahead and grab Mostert here.
So I think it's interesting because I know you've pointed out me being thin at tight end. I feel like you go thin at QB. Like, I know that, you know, you're a Sam Howell guy. You believe in him kind of being the starter there, or at least, you know, they're going to give him the runway to do it. Like, I would not feel comfortable with a 2 QB build with Howell as my QB2 personally. Unless you have like, like one of the elite guys or semi-elites. But Geno and Howell feels pretty thin to me.
Yeah, I don't think I would do a 2 QB build in that sense. I think I would end up with a third. But maybe I'll see how these rooms go. But I had the draft where I ended up getting Kyler at like pick 190. And so he's a guy that falls. But to your point, I probably will set up another backdoor stack if I am looking at Howell at a QB2. And so basically my thought I will say this, I'm willing to punt QB, but I'm actually not willing to go like super, super thin at QB this early in the offseason. And so like if I get shut out of the elite QBs and it just doesn't happen, like I'm just perfectly content doing 3 QB builds, because I think the way you combat it is, all right, you're going to have the elite QBs, but I'm going to be able to set up 3 individual stacks. That's going to potentially give me more leverage in the playoff weeks if I am able to sneak my team through, just having more outs to climb to the leaderboard via that correlation. So in this room too, like I was looking at the board, Derek Carr was still kicking around. And so I'm just kind of making a calculated decision. Look at this guy just sniping all by QBs. Now this I do think for him is an objectively bad pick. You spent 2 top 112 picks on a quarterback and then taking Kyler Murray unstacked there.
He panicked about the bye week.
Like that.
He saw the 2 week 13 buys and he's like, I have to get a guy who's playing.
Yeah.
Even though Kyler could also theoretically not be playing in week 14 or week 13 rather.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll probably set up a 3 QB build now with Howell and someone else.
And I just took Sam Laporta here for my Goff stack, so I feel pretty good about that. And that's the thing too, like we were talking about earlier, if you want to try to get a double stack, but you are going thinner at receiver because you're spamming some 0 RB teams. I think trying to take the tight end as your correlation works pretty well. And Laporta is one of those guys, Pete. I think he's going to be Kincaid range at some point this summer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they probably shouldn't be viewed that differently, right? Laporta and Kincaid.
So.
And my thought is that it should be more Kincaid coming down to Laporta range than Laporta going up to Kincaid range. But I'm doubting that's how the market will interpret it. I did get my first Kincaid share yesterday. It was a Josh Allen team where he slipped around past ADP. And I was like, I think he's one of the more egregious prices on Underdog. But if I'm ever going to get a share of him, it's going to be correlated with Josh Allen at an ADP discount. That's really the only time I'm going to end up with him.
It's obviously different ADPs, but it feels like Kincaid this year is getting the Josh Allen non-discount that Gabe got last year. Like he probably should be going where Laporta is in like the 130, 140-ish range. And instead he's going in the 115s, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. But I think that's it. Is just that like people get so excited about the potential of a new weapon in Buffalo. And then ultimately, like I like Kincaid a lot, but I think people might be a little disappointed with just the target share. Like Liam's going to be sad about it because he's not going to get 10 a game. He's going to get closer to like 5, 6 if we're running hot even.
Yeah, I think that's fair for sure. We could do something with Stafford around past ADP. That feels kind of gross. Let's see here. There are definitely some quarterbacks kicking around here. Always have my play the hits here. Is Jimmy Garoppolo still on the board? Could do something there. Also have that Indy correlation. I'm just going to give myself some more outs here. I'm going to put Renfro in. And then let's see. This is always the tricky thing with setting up the back door. It's like, do you want to set it up with the wide receiver or do you want to set it up with the quarterback and then grab the guy late?
There's probably not a lot of Renfro competition for you, but maybe.
Yeah. And then like someone like, I do like that I have Kenny Pickett, but I don't necessarily want unstacked Kenny Pickett in the same game against my Seattle stack there. Let's go ahead and just grab Matthew Stafford. I've now let multiple quarterbacks go and then not come back to me. And there at some point that's gonna hurt me. And I have a couple late darts on Los Angeles that I can toss for a stack there. But man, sometimes the drafts come cleanly to you, Spags. This one has not come cleanly. I've let my 3 different quarterbacks go that have not come back now.
See, and I think if you want to tie it back to that earlier question about, why sometimes I don't let the draft rooms come to me as much, it's because, again, I do the research, like I pull all the data, like I kind of inform my takes as best I can. But it's also that I didn't want to end up on a pocket where I've built around this whole thing and somebody snipes you on something. And not that you were like dying to get Matthew Stafford necessarily, but you got to Matthew Stafford because you lost out on option A, option B, option C. And I don't want to get to my option D too often, but obviously, different rooms and all that. Like Mac Jones is always there at 200 if you need it.
Yeah, and like my approach to it, and I've said this before, of like trying to draft, like I'm trying to like sneak through the super teams. And then an added bonus of like when you do get sniped is you end up getting that natural diversification benefit, right? Where I'm never going out of my way to target Matthew Stafford. But I do think he's a value when he slips past ADP. This is a 3 quarterback build where I need another one of those guys. And it just pushes me to different builds, even though it feels gross. And I definitely would not be my first choice, but it's not the worst thing to get guys at a discount that you wouldn't otherwise select.
I wanted Chase Brown there. Unfortunately, he goes right before me. So let's see what else.
Is this our true sniper? He sniped me like 3 times and now just sniped you on Chase Brown.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm most angry at Washington foreskins, I suppose, but we'll move on. I'm going to take Tyjae Spears here for a little week 17 correlation with Devin Singletary, my 6th running back off the board. So it's you 6-6-1, and I wouldn't mind taking another receiver late, Pete, but I feel like I got good running backs for a 0 RB room, so I don't know that I need to keep pressing running back as hard.
Yeah, and so you're done at QB there, and you did do the thing that I was saying where it can be a little tricky with the radical 0 RB to get the stacks to line up, but you ended up getting your double with Goff. And do you have a double with Watson right now,
No,
or
just
not
a
yet?
single for now. Maybe, yeah. I mean, there might be one running back I could take who's getting steamed up here, so I'm just going to grab him now. I'm going to take Jerome Ford, and that'll be my last running back, and maybe I'll take a luxury wide receiver and a couple tight ends.
So what's your structure at right now? A 2-7-6-1. So you're definitely going to do one tight end, and then you kind of have flexibility. I think you can definitely get to 7 wide receivers with that build.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially with the Pittman reach again, I liked the idea of taking Pittman just because I didn't love the other guys on the board, and I did want to be live to take AR, but he gets sniped for me. So I think 7th receiver if you're reaching like I did here, I think would be a wise move.
Yeah. I took Ford. Was it Ford and Gibson have been 2 of the guys that I like those guys as 0 RB targets that for whatever reason I haven't ended up with a lot of them. So I did get a Ford share on Best Ball Breakfast yesterday on one of my 0 RB builds. I think he's a great pick where he's going. Although this is also coming from the guy who was drafting loads of Dearness Johnson under like a somewhat similar thesis. It also just goes to show, right, where it's like, we all are smart enough to know there's value in the Cleveland backfield behind Nick Chubb, but it also goes to show how wrong we are like each year with like, oh, we kind of think it's going to be Dearness Johnson. Then we're all like, who the fuck is Jerome Ford? It's just another notch of like humility when we're doing this stuff.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt also definitely not coming back either for anybody who kind of wonders about that. Some of the Cleveland reporters were talking about this week. So it's part of why Ford is starting to come up even more.
So there's no one like jumping out at me as just like a super screaming value. So I'm going to go ahead and get complete 2 stack things that I want to make sure. So I'm going to be done at quarterback with Sam Howell. I'm going to have my Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson stack with him. And then I do need a tight end too. I would like to double stack Noah Fant. So now I have Charbonnet, DK Metcalf, and Noah Fant. I'm completely fine with a Hawkinson, Noah Fant tight end room. So I've now kind of like caught up structurally to where I need to be. And now I can tack on an 8th wide receiver here, most likely.
Yeah, I think your team makes sense. I feel like we didn't necessarily get the week 17 correlations we're looking for quite as much. Like you have a little bit on the back end of yours, but I think that's the one thing I feel like we both kind of missed on this draft.
Yeah, I don't have, Washington, I need a Niner, which I don't have. Minnesota with that mini, Green Bay, which I don't have, Seattle with Pitt, which I don't have. Cancel me. I have no week 17 correlation. The Rams and the Giants. I will. This is my promise to the people. I will find a way to correlate some week 17 bring back with my final pick.
Yeah, I'm taking one week 17 correlation, I think, which I can have safely in my queue because I'm not producing this stream, but I will be producing the next one coming up on the Splash Play channel. And of course, Pete, you have to pander for subscribers here because I think that's the one thing you're too proud to do. But subscribe to Pete's channel here. The March to 15,000 is going on. And of course, Pete giving away $1,500 to 3 different people if he hits that 15,000 sub mark. And I think, Pete, I've been seeing your views go up. So I want to make sure you're optimizing because I care. I care about you personally.
Yeah, and I should say it's so funny. I'm starting to notice commenter fatigue. Spags, I am wearing these guys down. Yesterday, I announced the expansion of Best Ball Breakfast on Wednesdays. Of course, we do 2 drafts on Splash Play. That's 6 drafts just alone, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. People are starting to say, hey, this is a full-time job. Hey, I'm slowing down. The comments are starting to slow down. So as Spags was saying, every time you leave a comment on one of these streams, you get entered into the giveaway. I'm telling you, your odds are going to continue to increase if you just stay consistent. I'm going to stay consistent. Spags is going to stay consistent. It's just up to you to leave a comment. But I'm telling you, these guys are starting to fall off. They're getting tired. We're losing a lot of good soldiers out there. So fight the good fight, stay in the commenting game, and you will continue to increase your chances to win 1,500. And I will even say this. Someone asked me the other day, I think we're well on pace to get 15K subs by like mid-summer, as long as we continue on this trajectory, although maybe we might need some more Run Pure Sports drama to help fuel that as well. But I'll even consider stretch goals once we get there. We'll do the giveaway right when we hit that 15K subs, and who knows, maybe we get a little, 17.5K stretch goal here. So appreciate all your comments. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel with all of the stream drafts. Just because you missed some at the beginning, it's fine. You can go back and watch them, leave comments. The entries are still good whenever they come in.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen some. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing all the comments too. Of course, I try to reply to all of them on the Splash Play channel. Pete replies to almost all of them here on his channel as well. One guy kept commenting, "You know why I'm here," on every video, and I was like, "God, this is just scary."
It is, and I've now developed these different, some people are now asking me trivia. One person names a breakfast fast food item every time. We got our guy Fantasy Football Garage who gives me a historical fact. We got Mathology who does astrology stuff. We got, there's all kinds of bits going in the comments. And then some people are more shameless. Some people say, give me the money. Some people say, you know why I'm here. So I like that everyone's starting to find their own lane in these comments, because it's like, we're stuck with each other for the summer. We're in this jail cell, this best ball jail cell, and we might as well make it fun for each other.
And also, I'll point out here, I got a 2-7-7-2 build to close out. Did get my, a triple stack now with Watson because I took Tillman at the end, but did punk out, Pete, of going just pure 6 receivers because I didn't like that I reached for Pittman in hindsight. And 7th receiver makes it feel slightly cozier.
There you go. I'm glad, you're just a 0 RB, bro. You're not a radical 0 RB, bro, is what we learned.
I am if I get value at receiver. Like if I got Watson in that group instead of Pittman, I probably would just roll with the 6 because 6 feels good too because it is uncomfortable, but you're getting upside. But boy, you miss on one of those receivers and it's like, God, I don't want to bury myself when I've actually kind of drafted somewhat advantageously.
All right, I need to ask the chat here. You guys get to decide. I mean, I do have Matthew Stafford unstacked right now, so I should probably take Tutu Atwell. But I did also promise week 17 correlation. Obviously, Tutu is correlated, directly correlated. Darius Slayton's probably a more objective, better pick. Or do you nail the correlation with Stafford? I think I just need to take Tutu because an unstacked Matthew Stafford just does not seem nice.
Yeah, but GA saying Puka. I would take Puka.
Yeah, I understand the actually I don't understand the Puka enthusiasm. I'm gonna go Tutu. Talk to me about Puka. Try to sell me on him.
So he's a little more spry, a little more competent playing outside. He's not just a boom bust guy, can kind of rack up targets and all that and catch and run. So I think Puka, undersized as well, like Tutu, but not just like a guy who's going to catch a 50-yard bomb and that'll make or break your day. He could, theoretically, like if Cup went down, he could theoretically get 6-7 targets in a game and make something with them.
What round did they take him in?
4th or 5th, something like that, maybe.
Let me know in the chat. What round did he take?
Let's see,
if he's
5th round.
We also need to back up because that level of draft capital, they're just extremely, extremely thin bets. I mean,
yeah,
it's tough. I mean, where's Jaden Reed going right now in drafts? Is he still 16th roundish in drafts?
Yeah,
or is
I think
he
so.
up?
Yeah, and he's going, and he went higher.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a little wishful thinking there. I get the late dart, trying to get a guy who isn't taken in a lot of drafts there, but I'm not going to take him over 2-2 in that case.
Let me just, I'm labeling my team on my end as well. Watson, Goff, AR, Snipe is what I'm going to call this one. All right. So yeah, give the plug here as we transition over. Of course, Pete has set it up automatically, but we will transition over. But yeah, I know you might want to plug some other things.
Yeah, no. So this is, of course, Splash Play doubleheader. So the second this stream ends, Spags and I are going to head over to the Splash Play channel to do exactly what we did here, draft Best Ball Mania 4 team. I have the link down below, or you can go to the Splash Play. I have those listed, and the redirect should work the second we finish here. If you just stay here, should refresh and be on the Splash Play channel. But like I said, my main thing is one, I am doing a Fantasy Life office hours today. I've been talking a lot of best ball in there. Actually, I have an article up on Fantasy Life today about kind of rethinking through week 17 for a lot of people who weren't around for best ball summer last year. So if you're somehow behind the 8 ball on that, kind of explaining some of those core principles and why it is something we want to focus on, unless you're in a draft like this, Spags, and it doesn't line up in a natural way. So you could come talk to me about week 17 correlation in the office hours of the Fantasy Life Discord. And then tomorrow, debuting another best ball breakfast rolling out. Going to be 2 drafts every Wednesday. First draft with the champ, Pat Crane. Second draft with Sean Siegel, the godfather of Zero RB from RotoViz. So really looking forward to that programming block. Same time as all of these 10 a.m. kickoff. Pat in the first block, Sean in the second. So definitely set your calendars for tomorrow at 10 a.m. as well.
Yeah, Pete bringing in the greatest minds here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, many are saying on his channel, but go check us out on Splash Play. Of course, leave that comment down below for Pete's giveaway, $1,500 going once he hits 15,000 subs on the channel. And Pete, I will give you kudos as well. Bringing great content to people. Pat and Sean back to back is a power duo here that I think will actually provide insight as well as the entertainment stuff.
Yeah, I like I like how, I'm drafting a shit ton of teams, but all of them different vibe. Mondays are solo. Tuesdays are you and me battling, getting sniped, tilting. Wednesdays will be, picking the brains of Pat, who obviously has put his ideas in practice and took down the 3 million. And Sean, literally the fantasy football mind I respect the most, a guy who I read everything he writes. I think he has just a great kind of holistic view on fantasy football. He understands it from the player take angle, from the draft board angle, and he's really good at not being afraid to break from consensus. And sometimes you'll look at Sean's ranks and last year, I think he had like a guy like Zeke Elliott just ranked like 6 rounds below ADP. And so he is not afraid to be aggressive in those spots. And so I love doing drafts with him because he really will go get his guys, but he somehow manages to do it in a very smart and thoughtful way. So yeah, looking forward to drafting with him this summer.
Yeah, so check that out tomorrow here on Pete's channel, but go head over to the Splash Play channel now, the Tilting Hour, 2 straight weeks. Pete and I both have gotten enraged by somebody out the process, so go over there, automatic redirect coming up here. We'll see you guys again soon. Pete, do the